Hey, welcome along to Menopause Month. I am chatting with Tracy Seider. Tracy, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what we're going to talk about?
Hi, Emily. Lovely to be here with you today, and happy World Menopause Month.
Yes.
I see we've been rocking it in the Perimenopause and Menopause Hub, and I'm thrilled to be a member there. Always awesome stuff going on. So I'm a movement coach, which means that I look at, rather than just exercise, I'm looking at how you're doing the exercise. So we just go a little bit deeper under the hood to try and get maximum benefit out of any of the movement or exercise that we're doing, so that we can feel better, look better, and live better.
See, sounds like a plan to me.
Want that.
So today we're going to look at, I guess, one of the most basic things of moving, so walking, aren't we?
Yes, yeah. I wanted to have a deeper look at walking, because I think that walking is a little bit underrated.
Yeah.
And that when we are looking for kind of solutions or help with our perimenopausal issues, and I see that there are a lot of common areas that people talk about, okay? There's weight loss, mood, and aches and pains, and bladder issues, leaking.
Yes.
And there is no panacea for anything, but if I were to offer you a panacea, it would be walking. And it almost sounds too easy, right? It's like, yeah, whatever, walking, schmorking, because we've been walking our whole lives.
Absolutely. And we do sort of think exercise must need to be all hot and sweaty and in a gym or whatever. But actually walking, when we walk correctly, is a hell of a workout, isn't it? It
is. And it is kind of a panacea for these issues, because if we just go back a little bit, right, and just think about it in context of us and of our bodies and of mankind, we evolved to walk.
Yes.
Walking was critical for the survival of the species, right? And so you had to walk to find shelter, you had to walk to find a mate, you had to walk to find food, and human beings did a lot of walking. We now no longer have to move for any of that, right? You can Tinder and Uber Eats and even work from your desk, right? But the problem is that, and it's the problem and the solution all in one, okay? The problem is that while we no longer have to move a muscle to do anything, right? That movement is not optional. It's not optional, because the body evolved to move. So if the body evolved to move and you're not moving and you're having all sorts of problems, then the solution is just the opposite, which makes it so easy and achievable and doable. And it's it cannot be that easy. You know what? It actually is that easy. Well, it is and it isn't. Okay.
Yeah.
It is and it isn't.
So obviously, people watching this are thinking, yeah, I'll just go out for a walk. But obviously, I know from having chatted to you before that there's walking and then there's walking.
Right. And we'll talk a little bit about that. First, I just want to talk about, I've got this little guide that people are welcome to download, and we can maybe do a bit more of it. If people are interested in what we're talking about here, we could maybe run the challenge in the group.
Yeah.
Depending on the weather. I know the weather's getting a bit awful in Toronto, but it's fine. I'm good. I'm up for it. Most of you are in the UK area, right?
Yeah, it's just raining here constantly.
Okay, but it's not minus 30 degrees. So we can still do a walking challenge. Okay, I'll just suit up and we can do it. So really what I like to talk about when it comes to walking is, first of all, why walk, all right? And we've covered a bit of that already. It's you were actually made to walk. The body is made, the way everything fits together and works together requires walking as a movement. Not just sitting all day as we tend to do, and then like maybe killing it on the treadmill or taking a hot yoga class. I thought that was ticking off my movement box, okay, until I started being hit with all these issues at about 45, right? The back pain, the hip pain, the sciatica, the leaking, the weight gain, all of that. So also walking just has like incredible benefits for cardiovascular health and mood and bone density and brain fog. And we've all read the articles on that, okay? So let's take it as a given that walking is good for us. All right. So yeah, we should walk, but what we are not really considering is how we walk. We're like, oh, I can walk. Like, I get up, I walk, I can do it. Like, done that, but doesn't really make much of a difference. And what we don't realize, where the movement coaching comes into that, and what I mean about getting under the hood a little bit, is that what we don't realize is that our bodies, the amazing thing about the human body, what makes humans able to survive the millennia, okay, and any organism that is with us today, is adaptation. In fact, my 8-year-old daughter was talking about it to me in the car to work today. She's like, have you heard of the word adaptation? We're learning about it in like plant science. They're growing a bean or something. And yes, that is the key to everything. The human body adapts, all right? And it's like, well, how have you adapted? How has the shape of your body adapted to your life? And how is that serving you? Okay, and what I mean by that is what the body adapts to what you do the most. We are, as much as we have evolved to move as human beings, right, and we require that movement, there's another thing that our movement like buttresses up against all the time. And you know what that is? The need to conserve energy. The human body will do whatever it can to conserve energy. That's why we all love Netflix. Right? So as much as, yeah, we want to exercise, there's this part of us that's like, no, go lie in the couch, right? Because there is this evolutionary part of our brain that wants to conserve energy. So part of that conserving energy means that your body will adapt, your cells will adapt, and the whole shape of your body will adapt to do what you do the most. And what do we do the most as human beings from about the age of 6?
Watch Netflix.
Yeah, but how do we watch Netflix?
Sitting.
What are we doing the most? We're sitting. We're
Yeah.
sitting. And it's not just, oh, sitting's bad for you, so stand up, right? That's not it. Like non-Western cultures, they still sit, and they sit a lot. The difference between other cultures and our culture is that we chair sit. We chair sit.
Right.
And it's that chair sitting that is having us 90 degrees at the hips, 90 degrees at the knees, for hours and hours and hours and hours and years and years and years and years, literally. I mean, add it up. You chair sit when you eat, you chair sit when you walk, you chair sit when you drive, you chair sit when you're on the train. You chair sit when you like watch Netflix, okay?
At your desk and everywhere, yeah.
Everywhere. And just like if you've ever had a broken bone, and you're in a cast and your arm comes out of the cast, you don't just suddenly lengthen out your arm and have range of motion. This ability of the body to adapt means that for the 6 weeks that you were in the cast, the tissues adapted to hold you in this position to make it nice and comfortable. So now it's going to take a little bit of time for the tissues to change. And the same thing is happening to our bodies with the chair sitting, and then that translates to the walking. And I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. But the thing with the walking, what I really wanted to say about the walking is that many of you may walk, which is awesome, but you may notice that it doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't really affect your weight if weight is something that you're looking to control, and it's not really making you stronger. And that is because the chair sitting has changed the shape of our body so that the only walk we have available to us is something called a falling walk. All right? As opposed to, which is what I teach, and because we don't want to do the cheats. The falling walk is the cheat, okay? There are two ways that things move forward on this planet. Little bit of physics, okay? The one way is by kind of leaning forward and letting gravity kind of move us forward and then catching ourselves, all right? That's one way things move forward. Another way for things to move forward is by doing what's called a posterior push-off, where there's this push back. If you've ever been ice skating, or if you think about being in a boat and rowing with an oar, like how does that boat go forward? It can't fall forward because you're in water.
Because water's flat, yeah.
The water's flat, right? So how does that boat propel forward with the oar? You have to push back and create resistance for the boat to move forward. And that is the kind of reflexive walk, that pushing back, that is the kind of gait cycle that we want to try and reestablish in the body, because two people can go for a walk and have completely different caloric expenditure. Like how many calories did you burn on that walk, depending on whether or not you're just using gravity and doing a falling walk, or if you are actually able to recruit your muscles and do a muscularly driven walk. So the latter one is the one we're after. And it's not only because of the calories. I mean, calories are great, right? If you can just run around all day and use your natural walking during the day to increase your calorie expenditure, then that exercise time that you get to, if you get to it, that's the cherry on top of the all day movement you've done all day, because you've just been moving and walking in a muscle building, muscle using way. Because when we use our muscles, we burn calories, right?
And also,
this all making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And also when you sort of then take that to, you know, however many years going forwards, the more we can keep our muscles strong now, the more we can be guarding against osteoporosis and all sorts of things, can't we?
Absolutely.
So it's good right now, but it's also good in the future.
Absolutely. And the critical thing about that, and this is what we talk about in this whole body biomechanics approach to movement, where our whole life is movement. It's a little bit of a mindset approach. Instead of like, this is Tracy, I do this, and now this is Tracy exercising. It's like, no, this is Tracy. My whole life is Tracy the mover, and exercise, the elliptical trainer or the yoga class or whatever, that's a piece of my movement pie.
Yeah.
So when we start to think of ourselves as movers, as human beings that move, and try and get more movement and more optimal movement and more muscle recruiting movement in the day, then every step you're taking is bone protective and muscle protective, right? Because once we hit that menopause, right? Once we hit that 12 years without a period and that estrogen goes boom, so do your muscles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do your muscles, unfortunately, because estrogen is very protective of the muscles, which means that I like to think of it as like being on an escalator, right? If you're on an escalator going up, if you aren't doing something every day often to walk up that escalator and maintain your muscle and maintain your bone density, you're moving down, because that's the direction of things, right? And we can't be exercising 24 hours a day.
No, what we do needs to count.
Yes, yeah. But on the same hand, we can't kind of be lulled into this often false sense of security that the yoga class or the Pilates class, which is great, but it's not enough load, just by the way. It's great for other things, but not enough load. Unless you're doing it with weights. Anyway, we won't get onto that. That's a whole other conversation, okay? But we need to be careful not to be lulled into the sense that we're ticking off the exercise block, that we're ticking off the muscle building block and the bone density block, because we're just walking or just doing the yoga or just doing the fitness class or just doing the weights. It requires like a little bit of a deeper and a go in, as I said at the beginning, going under the hood and saying, great that you're doing that, but let's just look for a minute at how you're doing that and make sure that that movement time that you're doing, and amazing that you're doing it, let's make sure that it's giving you the most benefit.
Yeah, totally. So I'm going to guess that most people watching this are falling walkers, because unless we've thought about how we walk, we're probably just all falling forwards, aren't we?
Pretty much. Let's do a test, okay? And I'll show you what I mean, because you may be thinking, what the hell is she talking about? Okay, so 2 ways for things to get forward, to move forward, right? So if you're watching, stand up for a minute and let's have a look. And I want you to just take a step forward. Just take a step forward. Just take a step forward and take another step forward and take another step forward and another step forward. And try and think for a minute, how did you propel yourself forward? Okay. What the majority of us are doing to move ourselves forward is we're taking a little bit of a shift. We're taking like a shift of weight. Sorry if my head's cut off, but you know what I look like. We're taking a shift of weight over onto one leg to free the other leg to move. Okay, and it's interesting which is our supporting leg and which is our moving leg, another conversation. Okay, so we're shifting the weight over, and then we're doing a little bit of like a lift at the knee, but the lift at the knee is actually coming from a lift at the hip. We're using what's called the hip flexor here to lift the knee, and then our body is falling. We're going with gravity, the body is falling, and we're breaking the fall with the foot and the knee so that we don't hit the floor with the nose, okay? And it's a lot of movement out in front of us. So you can let us know, like in the comments or whatever, if this is what you're doing, but this is really what the majority of us are doing, is this kind of movement that's very out in front of us, using a lot of hip flexor. Although it's small, it's the hip flexors, these muscles here, that are starting the movement, and we're just breaking our fall. That's called a falling walk, option A. And that's not actually reflexively the way human beings walk, but again, and we won't get too much into the whole alignment and how all our chronic chair sitting changes the way the body can move, because certain muscles become too weak and certain muscles become too strong, and we start to lose some reflexive way of movement. The thing is that it's pretty easy to start getting it back. That's the good news, okay?
Yeah.
So option B to move forward is that, and I'll show you in 2 angles here. Instead of shifting my weight over and lifting here, option B is to actually recruit, because what we want to do is, all we're wanting to do is clear the foot. I want to clear this foot enough off the ground. Let me take my socks off, it may be a little bit easier. I want to clear my foot enough off the ground to swing the leg forward, okay? So I'll show you what I'm doing here. I'm doing what's called a pelvic list, where I'm recruiting the muscles down the side of my body. They're called the lateral hip muscles. So I'm recruiting those muscles. It's taking my pelvis, because these muscles are tightening here, it's tipping my pelvis. It's lifting my pelvis like a ship at sea. So it's lifting my pelvis to the side. So this side of the pelvis goes down, which brings this side of the pelvis up, just enough for me to swing the leg through. And now my movement is being driven by my muscle. Okay?
Yeah.
I will show you what I mean sideways. This is a falling walk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this is more of a, I mean, I can't do a proper posterior push-off. I mean, I call that a tennis player's walk. It's pretty, you need like massive amount of strength to do that, which I don't have. But even if it's just a combination of posterior push-off and falling, already that's going to start making a big difference, particularly to any backache or pelvic floor leaking issues. And maybe we can go into that a bit. So instead of shifting the weight over and flexing here to move forward, I'm recruiting the muscles down the side of my leg. And that's taking this foot off the ground just a little bit to push through. And so I'm slowing down here, lifting up, and you see how the movement is coming more from the back of the body, and how all the strength from the butt all the way down to my ankle is being used to propel me forward. Okay, so that's what's called a posterior driven push-off.
So if somebody, somebody watching this now, they've ascertained that they probably do a falling walk right now. When they start doing the posterior push-off walk, are they going to feel that in the muscles down the side of their leg and into their glutes? Is that where they're going to? Yeah. Okay.
Oh yes. Like, you want to slow the walk down. I can give you a link, and also if you download the guide, I explain this all more, because the thing is, walking is this big movement. Okay, so it's a big movement. It's like a macro movement, and if we want to start doing it well, if walking in this muscle building way is something that kind of resonates with you, and I love it because it's like I just like to do easy things.
We all.
So, yeah, because I like to call myself, I'm the laziest movement coach. We want to break down what walking is into a couple of smaller moves. And what we may not realize is that the little bits that are required to do this posterior push-up, they're not working so well.
Okay.
So I explain in the guide, and hopefully we will run the challenge in the group. There are a couple of little exercises that you want to be doing, corrective exercises, to start to get the different parts of your body working optimally again, so that this posterior push-off is available to you. Because we don't want to obsess about it and make walking this horrible experience where you're like, am I doing this? Am I doing that? No, we want to spend a little bit of time every day working on a couple of corrective exercises that get the parts moving. Because in order to do this push-off, there are a couple of, and I'll just very briefly describe what they are, okay? And people can download the guide or whatever to get more detail. The one is learning how to do this pelvic lift, which can be quite a tricky move, because what we don't want to be doing is we don't want to be hiking up with the waist, okay? No. So learning how to get the move can be a little bit tricky. So I break it down. I've got a YouTube thing that breaks down a little bit how to do that. The other thing is that as we take the leg forward, it requires a lot of calf length to be able to keep the back foot on the floor long enough for these muscles to kick in and do their work. And the problem is that most of us have ridiculously tight calves, because Because every time we sit on a chair, which I don't know about you, but it's like pretty often since about the age of 6, puts the calf in a shortened position. The calf muscle is in a shortened position. Every time you wear a shoe that is not a zero drop shoe, people say to me, but I don't wear a heel. I just wear like a little heel. A heel is a heel is a heel. If you put a 1-inch block under a bookshelf, that bookshelf is going to tip forward. So any heel under your foot is putting the calf in a shortened position. And let me know, like this, the shoe industry is sneakily set us in this position where the heel is higher than the toe. Like even if you put your hand in your sneaker, it probably got you in this lifted positive heel position. Unless you specifically buy a shoe that is zero drop, you're probably being put in a heel. And again, as we said all the way at the beginning, the body adapts to the position it's in the most, right? So if you're putting your calf in the shortened position for years and years and years, then what may be stopping you from getting this posterior push-off is that you don't have the length. And so your stride is kind of rebounding and bouncy, and it's lifting you up before you've had time for these muscles to really propel you forward. So there's an exercise that I teach called the calf stretch. The other thing is, as you move through this gait cycle, you're wanting to go over the top of your toe. So if your foot can't back bend nicely like that, that's going to interfere with your ability to do this posterior push-off. So that is another exercise that I teach. And please don't just do it while I'm showing you here. You may want to do it on a chair because it can be quite tough. Okay, we don't want to be just taking the back of the toes back. We want to be right on the top of the foot. So if it hurts or whatever, please reach out to me and I can give you some modifications. And also we've got to be really gentle with all these correctives because our bodies are so set in the position they're in now. Although the correctives look quite easy, if you don't really work into them slowly and with a little bit of supervision, you may injure yourself. So take it super, super easy and do it at your own risk, okay? But I can absolutely take you through them. The other thing is, as we walk, you can see my leg goes behind me, right? So we need this space through our hip flexor to allow, where's my pelvis? Where's my pelvis? We need this leg to be able to go behind us, okay? And in many of us, because we're so adapted to the chair sitting, our hip flexors are so tight, we're so used to the leg being in this position, right? That we pulled forward and we can't really get that leg behind us for the glutes and the hamstrings to come on. And that, BTW, is actually the fix for the pelvic floor issues, is when that leg can go behind you and the glute can come on and tone the pelvic floor muscles. But that's a whole other conversation. But that's why walking is so awesome for pelvic floor issues and bladder leaking issues and all of that. But if you can't get that leg behind you, what many of us are doing is we're doing this little cheat of back bending to get the leg, to make it look like the leg is going behind us. And we're overworking these QL muscles. It's actually the QL muscles that are walking, that are kind of like walking us and getting the sense of having that leg going behind us. So what we want to be doing is a lunge, but we need to be doing this lunge with a neutral pelvis, which is what I call a neutral pelvis. So we don't want the pelvis tucked, we don't want the pelvis untucked. We want the pelvis neutral, and then we're not doing a yoga lunge where I'm showing you how nicely my back can bend, because that's not how we walk. We want to walk with the pelvis neutral, the rib cage neutral, and just get a little bit of opening through the hip flexor. And it's not a lot. We only have about 30 degrees range of motion there. So we don't need to be overdoing it. We just need to train the body for the leg to go behind us without the back muscles feeling like they doing something. Because a lot of people will tell me, oh, I've taken up walking, but really hurts my back. And that can be because you're actually using your back, you're doing a lot of compensating because parts of your body are stuck. So you're using your back to walk you rather than the areas that we want to be moving, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's called corrective exercise.
So in your guide, which we'll put on the website with this video, people can learn all of these corrective exercises and things to learn how to walk properly. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Well, the guide doesn't go into massive detail on how to do the exercises, except for the pelvic list. There are pictures of how to do them. So if people want any more clarification of how to do them, they're welcome to reach out to me. And I do offer a free half-hour session. And then maybe if we do more of this in the group, if the members are interested in this, then we can run the full challenge, and then I can go into greater detail of how to do those exercises.
I think that would be brilliant, because I think in one standalone video, it can be quite a lot of information, can't it? So I think if we get this onto the website and then run the challenge in a couple of weeks' time, then I think that would be really useful, because that then gives people a chance to let it bed in, doesn't it?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing we want to do, sorry, just another thing, is we really want to look at where we're walking.
Okay.
And just changing where you walk can change how you walk, because we are, just like we're sitting a lot as modern Western human beings, we're also walking a lot on unnatural, hard, even surfaces. So if we just try and, I like to say, please do walk on the grass.
Yeah.
If we just try and think of opening our range, right? Of looking for hills, of looking for more natural terrain. I mean, I live in like deep suburban Toronto, right? And there are not many natural surfaces and forests and things to walk on a daily basis. So all I do is, when I can, I just step off the sidewalk and walk on the grass. And already that becomes a challenge to my balance, to my muscles, to my whole vestibular system. And that's what the body loves. It loves variety and it loves challenge. So even if like all these exercises and they were just too much to contemplate now, just walk on the grass and just try and get a sense. Walk on the grass and look for hills and try and get a sense, because even if we just imagine in our brain, that starts to make the pathways. Just kind of imagine and get the sense that your butt is moving you.
Perfect. And I know what you mean by when you walk up a hill. I mean, I live in like practically the flattest part of the UK, so there's not many hills around here. But when I used to live in the Alps, obviously up a mountain, you do feel it. You can't not walk up a hill without your butt pushing you, can you?
Right, because there's that resistance, because you're going up a hill.
Because you can't be falling. You can't fall up.
Yeah, no, you're not falling, right? So you're really getting a sense of what it is for your butt and your hamstrings to be moving you. Yeah.
So we all need to move to the mountains, and then we'll walk brilliantly.
Yes.
Simple solution. There we are, done.
And people ask me about treadmills, right?
Yeah.
So same thing with treadmills. Treadmills, they're fine. If that's all you can do, if that's the only movement that's available to you because the weather's icy outside or whatever, right? There's long periods that I don't walk in Toronto because it's just too treacherous. I do not want to be slipping on the ice when the ice is out. So I will use gym equipment. But the problem with the treadmill is that the ground is moving underneath you, right? So again, this is just physics and mechanics. Because the ground's moving underneath you, it's very easy for you to be stuck in this falling walk because you're trying to create momentum to keep up with the ground moving underneath you. And again, that's just reinforcing your current shape of everything being driven from your quads and your hip flexors from the front of your body rather than the back of the body. So my treadmill tip is to rather slow down the speed, okay? Slow down the speed and increase the incline so that you do get more of that propulsion happening from the back. And I promise you, it will still get your heart rate up and will probably be even more exhausting than doing like a flat, fast run or walk.
Yeah, perfect. Wow, that's lots of tips. And yeah, we'll run the challenge in a couple of weeks' time.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Bye.